Okay.
Recording in process. Hi everyone. If you are one of the subscribers that we have, I think you might know about our show thus far. What we try to do is that we try in as much as possible to call on our great brothers and sisters in the diaspora just so that we can share the information from back and forth in terms of the importance of just generalized information and in just spreading our Africanness globally. As you might know, I am Loma Munahing, and today I have with me the beautiful brother, Nabeel Biajo, just to share with us his journey and becoming a journalist with VOA, which is Voice of America over here in DC. This is going to be a fun-filled show. We are not very much suit and tie. In fact, I'm hungover, but Ayuba, it's cool. It's cool. We don't mind that. Nabil, my brother, thank you so much for joining us. First of all, as one of the very few friends that I have over in DC, I'd like for you to share with us your journey and how you came to be in DC and everything, really. We are not going to just make it a blow by blow, but just the
Right.
conversation. Yeah.
No, thank you very much for the warm welcome. I'm obviously honored to be here sharing this platform with you, where you bring voices from the diaspora to come together, have important conversations about the continent and about the role of us here in the diaspora, our experiences and what we can do for our people back home. It's really, I think it's a really important platform and function that you are doing very well. So kudos to you actually for starting this and getting the conversation going. My journey, um, so for you listeners, I'm from South Sudan/Sudan. I first made contact with the United States back in 2013. I was doing a fellowship, just like what you're doing, Leoma. You're a scholar, a Fulbright scholar. I also came here on a different program, the Atlas Core Fellowship, an exchange program where like they bring people like us from Africa and other places as well. It's not Afrocentric to share experiences, to learn also from U.S. institutions, but also go back home to to give back, to share what we have learned and all of that. So my host organization while on the program was the Voice of America, which is a broadcaster of the United States government. Editorial independent, but funded by the State Department. And I did the fellowship. It was a great experience. I was mainly in radio, but also I got exposed to TV. I mean, if you look me up, Nabeel Biajo, you'll find clips and reports, mostly on Sudan and South Sudan, my region, but also I'm part of a wider Africa division. We cover all 54 countries, including Lesotho, of course. And yeah, so that's how I got into it. And it was supposed to be a 1-year fellowship. I think they liked me for some reason. They extended the fellowship to a year and a half. And then after that, they actually liked me so much, they wanted to hire me, but the State Department said, no, it's an exchange program. The purpose of this, you come here, learn and share experiences with us, but also go back to share and give back what you have learned. So that's what I did. I continued doing my work from home. I was traveling between Sudan and South Sudan. But until I came back to the United States around February 2020, just right before the pandemic. So it wasn't, it was an interesting time. But I came back to a different DC in lockdown, and but I continued through the Voice of America to do to connect with the continent, to do reporting on the continent, to connect with diaspora people, like you, Leoma. I met you, I think, a little less than a year ago.
Yeah.
And we connected, we shared, we had great conversations, and I look forward to getting into some of the stuff that we talk about as diaspora here.
Yes. I have one question. Coming from Sudan and then being in America, I think it wasn't up until I read up on Kwame Nkrumah and how important the diaspora is in terms of that information exchange. How do you see yourself as, for lack of a better word, a pillar of that sort of exchange, or someone, or a conduit really of that information exchange from and to, and vice versa, because it's so important?
I like the use of the word conduit.
Yes.
I think it's appropriate. And it's interesting you brought up Kwame Nkrumah. So, Leoma, I think I learned from a compatriot of yours that people like in conversation language, they call you Loma, not Layoma. Someone corrected me, said, "Oh, just say Loma."
Yeah,
Don't
no, it's cool.
Layoma the way
Nah, it's
actually
fine.
it's a mutual friend. It's Tifo, if you remember him.
Yeah, different.
I was talking on the phone with him. He said, "Oh yeah, Loma." I said Loma. He said, "Yeah, I've been saying Leoma this whole time." I said,
Conversationally, it's fine.
he
Yeah.
said, "No, it's written Leoma, but we just say Loma." I said, "Oh, that's a great thing I'm learning." About my brothers on the other side of the continent. Yeah, so like I said, I like the word conduit, which you use, because essentially, while I believe we have an important role as Africans in the diaspora to play to advance certain causes, I think essentially we are just channeling, we're acting like a conduit. I honestly think the greatest service we can do to the to for our people back home in the continent is to amplify some of the important voices back home. We have a lot of people who are doing great things on a scale that doesn't, like, they don't get it. It's important. The scale can even be important, but they don't have the platform to amplify their voices, to get the recognition and the support they need. I mean, it's 2023. Like, the great thing is the explosion of the media, social media. You can have someone, a small team in some corner in Lesotho or in South Sudan. They're doing important things that people need to hear about. People need to know, to recognize, to support. But they don't have the platform to do that. They don't have, um, it's through no fault of their own, of course. It's just certain challenges that we all too familiar with, that our people face back home. So I really think at least as a media person, as a multimedia journalist, my greatest role, my really meaningful contribution is to connect with important voices back home and to have these conversations with people here in diaspora, scholars like you, who are here now having a different perspective, because when the way we've fragmented in Africa, like Africa is a continent, right? So many countries, so many languages, but I think the diaspora, they play a great role in connecting people around causes, common causes that you wouldn't otherwise know what a small team in South Sudan, is doing, and that the cause they're advancing, and what you should know about, maybe collaborate with them. But now we have met. When you go back home, and at some point I'm going to end up going back home as well, we have that connection, we have the network, and through other people as well. So yeah, I'm acting as a conduit. I'm channeling uh, uh, efforts and stuff done here in the diaspora with what is being done at home. It's given me over the years a very interesting perspective I otherwise didn't have when I was living in Africa or traveling in East Africa. My work also takes me around the region, like not just Sudan, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania. You know, and I really, from meeting people like you, sharing the experiences, I look forward to visit that side of the continent, visit
Yeah,
South
for
Africa,
sure.
Lesotho.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure. We'll definitely welcome you. You
yeah.
mentioned something that's so important. You having had the fortunate ability to sort of have so many different views in terms of speaking to people from all across the continent. What is it that you see, or a couple of things that you've seen that have changed your mind about the African continent as a whole? Before you went into the fellowship, and then now that you are a full-blown journalist and you've literally just been exposed to people from all across the continent, what are the things that you've seen that, oh, this is different, I didn't know this about Africa, but I'm learning this about Africa?
Loma, like when you're in a division covering 54 African,
Yes, yes,
the first thing, it humbles you, you know, like you come
definitely.
from one African country. I know some people in the diaspora, people who maybe were not born in the country, who don't have the necessary awareness, the requisite awareness. They look at Africa as just like as a body, like
Yes,
Africa.
it's
Oh,
one
he
thing.
went back to Africa. He's from Africa.
Mhm.
When you are on a daily basis, like I do, when you cover 54 countries, political issues, social issues, economic issues, the rights issues, is the struggle of women, of the youth, of different sectors of society. First of all, it humbles you, and then as any good journalist or good just good person, you invest in learning, learning about parts of the country you didn't know much about the experiences of people. Like, for example, Sudan was colonized by the British.
Mhm.
I I recently, you know, I mean, you meet people who had the French experience. I recently met this Yali fellow, actually. She's from Mozambique. She speaks Portuguese. And I was just fascinated. I was just sitting back and just asking questions, learning, you know, about that part of the continent and what issues they're struggling with, the youth, the economy, political stability. Is it a safe country? Is it secure, or do you have conflict like South Sudan and stuff like that? So number one, the exposure and the perspective you have changes you. It humbles you. It motivates you to invest more in learning and see. And here's the challenge: we're talking about ourselves as the African diaspora, like we're coming together. And you're right to bring up Kwame Nkrumah, and I think it's not a coincidence that he was here in the U.S. Of course, he was the pioneer Pan Africanist that we know, and he tried to advance that very much until the end. Um, there is there is like being in the diaspora, looking back, they're looking at the continent, we see, you know, maybe we should be looked at as one nation. We're just a little bit fragmented. We
Yes.
can come together. There's a strength in unity when we connect our struggles across the continent, when we work together, when we get to know our brothers and sisters and learn to work together. I think this is the biggest takeaway for me, doing what I've been doing and being here. Yeah.
Funny. I just when you were talking, I just remembered something. I'm not sure because I do some things. So someone was explaining there isn't much strength in an open palm, but once you build it up
Absolutely.
into a fist,
Absolutely.
It's gonna
Absolutely.
be a headache. It's gonna be a problem.
Absolutely.
So, what I've witnessed, because I'm here at AU and I'm doing international development, which is sometimes very painful for me as an African. Sometimes getting to understand how things have actually worked,
Yes.
but I've had a change of view in terms of what development really is.
Okay.
Because back when I was back at home, I used to view like, okay, first world, third world, second world, and in terms of the westernization view of being a third world, that means that you're not developed. But I came here and I realized that no, we are pretty well developed when it comes to like a lot of sectors in terms of our health sector, in terms of our education sector, in terms I find myself actually having to educate some of my professors on
Of
some
course.
of the things.
Of course.
So what is it in terms of your view? Have you seen the inconsistencies in terms of westernized views of development and how far back Africa is as a continent in terms of how it needs to develop? Like, I'm trying to find that middle ground of this is the westernized view, but this is how correctly it should be viewed, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
I think the issue I would like to tackle something that I hope will come close to addressing
Yes.
your question.
Yes.
There is, of course, as a scholar here, and you're a very educated person. You know, your mind, you have a vision, you have clarity. You must have encountered and actually grappled with in your studies at AU what people term sometimes Eurocentric.
Yes.
Uh, I mean, here the US being like an offshoot of Europe,
Yes. Yes.
um, so in terms of the world, because Europe and the United States, they are the dominant forces in the world, producing knowledge, influencing narrative, with some objective advancements that we don't have, like technology, like the size of the economy and stuff like that. So and that carries over into all sorts of fields, academia, and even knowledge. If your knowledge, let's say, if your knowledge cannot be verified through a Western lens, is almost not recognized, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So there is that. I think in the post-colonial studies, people talk about decolonization of knowledge, of academia, of even entertainment standards of beauty. Even all sorts of things. That's one issue that you would think our brothers here in the West, who are not African, would recognize and say there's no one way, there's not
Mhm.
only one way, one bigoted way to
Mhm.
look at things, to appreciate things. And the other thing about development, that being said, there are objective ways where we in Africa can learn and can advance if we get the friendship and the support that we need, not what other people think we need,
Mhm.
if let's say in terms of development, we know we have great resources in Africa. I'm sure you also have a strong component on the economics
Yes.
as a scholar who is pursuing development studies.
Yes.
We know, for example, Africa, like we have abundant resources, but we are lacking in things like technology, like capital. That's where we can learn from people here. We can collaborate. But now the trouble is development is not done. We can look at how the West, for example, developed and be forced or bullied into following the same track.
Yes.
You've followed the recent conversation the Kenyan President William Ruto had at the IMF,
Yeah.
and how, you guys used to
Macron, yeah.
trying to help, but this is how you can help. This is our
Yes.
proposal. If you're really a friend of the continent and you want to do business, you'll be business partners. We know you have interest here. This is how it goes. This is our proposal. What you're doing is not helping us. It's helping you, and you're actually setting back development. So let's sit around the table as partners, as equals, and see what we can do for each other instead of just being told, Africans being told, the IMF has these, I mean, since the structural adjustments in the 70s, or
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
just they prescribe, oh, you can't, your economy is struggling. This is what
Mm.
you need to do. These are the measures. These are the conditions to give you loans,
Open up
concession.
your borders.
Yeah, yeah. These are some of the things that I think these are some of the conversations we need to advance here in the West.
It's funny because I just remember yesterday I was on my way to the gym, and then like I passed through one of the buildings that we have here at school, and then it clicked, the whole globalization issue. I was like, how can we open up? Because it was presented such a like, this is obvious thing. You should open up your borders, therefore you'll grow. But I'm like, economically, in terms of how power works, it wasn't equal in the first place, but now you want us to have an equal playing field. That's like featherweights going into the ring with a heavyweight. That's like
Yes.
that's like
Yeah.
Floyd Mayweather jumping into a ring with like Mike Tyson, expecting it to be a fair fight. It was just like,
Right.
oh, this is how we've been controlled. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Let me not get into all of that.
No, no, no. No,
But
no, but what is interesting, yeah, sorry, I will let you ask you next.
yes, yes, yes,
But
yes, yes,
the interesting thing, and I think there is a recognition now growing up, although it's a little bit late. It's not
yes,
too late, but they've been slow to recognize it. And you could tell it from you remember the last Africa Leadership Summit when President Joe Biden brought African presidents here, and he even made great promises like pushing for a permanent seat at the UN Security Council, and
uh,
and I think part of that is that we no longer live in a world where one pole dominates everything. Uh, we live in a world where there are emerging economies.
yes,
We have countries like Singapore, like Brazil,
yes.
and we have other poles. Actually, if you're thinking about the big poles, you have China, you have Russia, and competition produces interesting things.
Yes.
You start noticing the language is changing, the rhetoric is changing. People are more friendly now. They want to do business. They're more humble because you have other options.
Uh, that's a funny thing. That's a funny thing. And just like me jumping into decolonization, or rather, jumping into the African Renaissance. This is something that our brother Jackson, we talked about in another show.
Yeah.
How have you seen, like in a broader sense? I'm still tying it back to decolonization because as I tell some of my lecturers here that you can't say that we are not still colonized because you just changed the names of government entities and you went into like corporations, but it's still the same people with actually the still the same structures, but that's a story for another day. How have you seen the African Renaissance? Because I was talking about it with Jackson, our brother, the other day. Like, I'm seeing a shift with Africans and them actually having the esteem with their chest out to say, but no, we're not going to go for this anymore. How
Yeah.
have you seen the African Renaissance and that change in terms of mindset in us as Africans, in terms of how we see ourselves in terms of the worldview and where we place ourselves currently right now? And are you seeing a progression, or are you therefore seeing a change in terms of we had this inferiority complex, now we are true to our Africans?
I see a steady progression towards that decolonization you just described. Um, I see perceptions are now clear. People see. no longer have the tolerance to let things go the way they have been going. Like, well, no, we're putting our foot down. We've been independent, like we tell ourselves we've been, the political independence was achieved, but a lot of interest and what do you say, the levers of controlling things are still strongly connected to previous masters, and at least at the level of perception, Africans are, I think I see, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, we're not old, but I would like to investigate this more. I would like, this would be a good conversation if we had someone from like an older generation,
True.
people who like maybe were there at independence. And I mean, we read about that stuff, we talk to such people, but I see clearly there is a clear shift, and it's not just a phenomenon. No, it's a shift, it's a paradigm shift. We're now going in this direction. There's no going back, you know? um, I see that, and but again, the issues we need to grapple with once we go our own way, once we set our own agenda, we often find that we are beset and taken back by corruption, by corrupt leaders, leaders who don't have our people's best interests at heart. Because if Africans were voting, were deciding how on deals, how to deal with this country, how to deal with that, how we should be treated, how our business relationship or partnership with the West should be, I think we will have a different story. We'll be talking a different thing altogether. But then the challenge for us is to liberate and democratize decision making on important issues in Africa, so that such issues are not controlled by few elite and corrupt, leaders. That's what I see as the obstacle right now. But as far as our people, the continent, I think we are moving. That ship has sailed. We're not going back to the old days. There's new thinking. There's a new paradigm shift. There's new determination not to be pushed around, to be in charge, to assert our agency in what happens to us, what happens in our countries, on the continent, and what our business partnerships and friendships with other countries should be.
I'll be honest. I think we're going into like the very last question.
Go ahead.
I'll be honest with myself, and I'll be honest with the people that are that have subscribed and the people that will watch this. When I came to Washington, I was a different person. I was like, I had my chest out, like I was the most cockiest person. But I soon realized what the philosopher or whoever said that meant when they said that ignorance is bliss, because knowledge can mess you up. So
Yes.
I've learned so much, and in terms of what the base of knowledge is, and also what is not being said in terms of just the truth of the matter. And sometimes
Yes.
it's painful. Sometimes I don't want to do a lot, because, like, sometimes when you read, you go into how horrific and truly disturbing power dynamics have worked. But with that being said, I think I changed my narrative to my legacy being just a legacy of kindness, because, like, when I go into everything that someone has to do, if they're bestowed with certain fortunate aspects of life, I just go into, like, that's very tiring. So I just want my legacy just to be a legacy of kindness. And with
Kindness
that,
is, yes,
yes, with that being my very last question, because
yes.
now Zoom is telling me I have to pay.
Okay.
What would your legacy, or how would you want your legacy to be left behind as, and what would you like to define your legacy?
I would I would like my legacy to be, I would like for it to be said that when I'm gone, that I made a meaningful contribution uh, from where I was to our people back home, to the continent. Impact, I mean, it's cliche, but you want to leave some impact behind, that you did good work, and what you did is not like, let's say you're doing this platform, you bringing diaspora voices to have these conversations. Would you want to uh, as let's say move on to other things, or let's say in a long time when you're gone, that you want this platform to die down? No, you want it you want it to serve as you want people to be doing bigger and greater things, and just know that, oh, we give uh, tribute to Leoma, who started this really platform. It was small, but he got the conversation going, and we really owe a tribute to him. So you would want to, even if you haven't achieved everything you aspire to achieve, and it's when you step out of yourself a little bit, you know that it's a collective effort. It's one person cannot do everything, or you can only do great things when you have a team, when you have people behind you, when you have a base. And that's what I would like to build in my career working on Africa, covering Africa, and to leave something behind that will continue and advance the conversation. You and I may not live to see the Africa we want, we dream of, but you will have some solace knowing that the struggle continues, the work is going on, and we're going to get there someday. You children, my children, or our grandchildren.
Brother, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's been such a
Absolutely.
blessing. Do you have like any last words?
No, I think it's been a great conversation. I just want to emphasize the point you made about knowledge. You said when you came here, and now you
Tired.
chilled, laid back, and you holding on to kindness for now
I'm
until
tired
uh,
because it's so much. I fight with everyone. Like I'm literally like the Malcolm X of every class that I'm into because I'll be in a corruption class and African countries will always be at the top. But then my thing is, why doesn't Transparency International talk about the enablers of corruption? There's
yeah,
capital flight.
yeah,
Where are our dictators, quote unquote, banking? How are
yeah,
you letting them bank with you? So you are floating off of our corruption, and then you will say, but it's a you don't go into corruption alone. You don't
yeah,
you just don't decide, oh,
yeah,
I'm going to be corrupt today, and it's just a one man thing. It doesn't
yeah,
happen. It's like,
yeah,
why aren't
yeah.
people telling? So I'm just tired. I spend my day going to the gym and watching
No,
TikTok
but don't
and
tire, man.
talking
The
to
struggle, the struggle continues. And the thing about knowledge is that I don't remember who said this. It's been attributed to different people. They say what I learned like back growing up, that knowledge is like three stages. If you enter the first stage, oh, you think you're it, you know everything,
yeah,
but you just know very little. You
yeah,
enter the second stage, it humbles you.
yeah.
You look around and say, "Man, I don't know." And then when you enter the third stage,
uh,
you know that you don't know anything.
anything. Yeah, yeah.
These are the stages of knowledge.
I don't want to like. I just want to make a difference. I
Oh,
used
yeah,
to debate. I no longer debate. Obviously, I'll stand up for what I believe is right in any setting. That's
yeah,
what I always do. I don't care who it is, but for the most part, it's like painful. It's painful because at first I used to find it so exciting. Oh, I'm learning such a lot. But then it's like when you go into the other sector or the other ring, and then you find that, oh, this is programming at the very minuscule level from the moment in terms of how beauty is defined to, like you had said, to how we imagine ourselves, to even the picture of what development is, to how globalization was painted, to everything. And just like, oh my goodness, that's
yeah.
I'll just
No,
watch.
but you have the right idea. What you said, you just want to have impact, to make a difference. That's it.
Yeah, Yeah,
knowledge is what good is knowledge if it doesn't bear fruit, if
most definitely.
you don't make a difference and have impact. Yeah.
Most definitely. My brother, it's been a beautiful day. I'm just going to go to the gym and work on my Johnny Bravo legs because I
Yeah.
have a big chest but very small, skinny legs.
Yes.
I'll see you on the next one. Thank you.
All
Thank you,
right. Thank
brother.
you. Thank you for
Salute.
having me. Yeah.
Salute to you.